Hey there, and welcome to the Reclamation Room. I'm Ashana, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a space for women reclaiming themselves after narcissistic abuse. If you've ever felt like you were too much, not enough, or both at the same time, you're in the right place. I created this podcast because I know what it's like to lose yourself in overgiving, overperforming, and still wondering why it never felt like love. I've walked through trauma, toxic relationships, and the long road of self-reclamation, and I'm here to walk with you. In this podcast, we'll explore what it means to come home to yourself after the confusion and chaos of narcissistic abuse. Some episodes will be solo, others will include guest interviews. All of them will be honest, grounded, and deeply compassionate. So, whether you're just realizing what you've lived through, or you've been on this path and you're ready for the next layer of your healing, you are welcome here. This is not about perfection. This is about reclamation. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Reclamation Room. This is a podcast for women healing from narcissistic abuse and betrayal trauma. And today I want to talk to you about kind of a touchy subject. So I was actually recording another podcast for you guys a second ago, and I was like, nope, that's not the move. Deleted it because I started going off on a tangent. And I decided for this episode, I think it's better to just follow that tangent. And that is how, when we are in relationship with someone who is exhibiting these painful behaviors, these hurtful communication dynamics, and we act in a way that is trying our best to get our needs met, I think it's really important that we start to have awareness around our behaviors so that we can begin to discern, is this me taking accountability, or is this me manipulating the situation because I just want love that badly? And I say that this might be kind of a touchy subject because as I was talking about this a moment ago, I realized that these communication patterns that we fall into trying to get love when we're being hurt repeatedly, it is manipulating the situation. And I don't think many people would think that's the case. So let me explain. I'm going to use myself as an example. So in the past, when I was in relationships that were harmful, my go-to was what many people would call the fight response. And so I would try even harder to make my opinion be heard, to make my side of the story be heard. I fell into patterns of criticizing, nagging, constantly telling the other person what I felt they were doing wrong. I would talk and talk and talk in circles for hours and just try to get through to this person. Like, I don't see how you're not understanding that this is painful. And I don't see why we don't see eye to eye on this subject. Like, can we please talk this through? And it got to the point of being destructive at times. Like, I would get to the point of like being belittling and like harsh and name calling in the way that I would speak. And so obviously in this moment, I'm trying to have a deeper connection with that person. Like, I'm almost pleading with them, like, please understand this. And when that didn't work, I would get angry. And I would be condescending, and I would be like, well, clearly the way that you're doing things isn't working. So why do you keep doing the same things? Like, I hear you when you're telling me these pretty words of like, I'm going to make it better. You're not actually making it better. So, like, what do we need to do here? Because this is stupid. And even though I was trying my best to appear collaborative and to appear like I was being helpful and I was trying to get that love and that connection with that person, I was actually manipulating the situation, because what I was saying by not saying it is that I wanted them to act the way that I wanted them to act in the relationship. And so this is a really important nuance when we talk in terms of the self-accountability of how we are showing up, and then where that line is when we're drawing boundaries. Like, is this self-accountable, or is this me being a doormat and taking too much from the other person? Or is this me, this is turning into reactive abuse itself? Like, where is the line here? And I think this is an important conversation because, especially after experiencing narcissistic abuse, we doubt ourselves. Our discernment is not there. It can feel like we're completely disconnected from our intuition, or almost like we never even had one, or we wouldn't have gotten into this mess, right? And so this awareness grows into discernment. But I think in the moment it's difficult because we're in so much pain and we're trying so hard to get the other person to see or to understand. And so I'm talking about this more in terms of my experience of I'm going to talk more, right? I'm going to get you to see. But I think this applies to other communication patterns as well. Because, for example, if you are the kind of person who your partner ruins holidays, right? Like ruins special days and finds a way to come home in a bad mood and you guys had plans and now everything is just awful. You might be the kind of person that would tend to placate or to try to appease the other person and sweep it under the rug and not say anything and just say the nicest things that you can to charm or disarm this other person so that they will just stop being mean so that you guys can go and have your time together and enjoy yourselves, right? So we're looking at this one in terms of like, you just want that connection. You just want that love. What is so hard about just enjoying time together? Why does everything have to be a battlefield? Why can't we just have one important day? But it's not worth fighting over because I'm willing to sacrifice that in order to just get you back in a good mood so that we can go and we can have fun and at least I'll have that memory to look back on. And that's admirable too, because you want love. You want to have good memories to look back on. You don't want to look back and believe that you've wasted all this time with this person. But we've got to look at the reality here also. That's also manipulating the situation because this person is showing you in that moment the way that they want to be acting, even if it's subconscious, that maybe their best version of themselves wouldn't act that way. But right now in this moment, this triggered version of themselves, this is how they want to be acting. This is how they want this situation to be going. And when we're not able to collaborate, right, to have an integrative conversation of like both people's needs are important here, we can't speak our truth, or even if we do, our truth is not being heard. That means that this one person is going to be getting their way unless we concede. And so we concede, and ultimately, that's not being your honest version of yourself either, right? So, like my nagging, criticizing, condescending version of myself, that's not my best self. Okay, that's a version of myself that I don't want to be. I want to be soft. I want to be inviting. I want to be nurturing. I want to be vulnerable and I want to be playful and carefree and have fun. And by me trying to get that person to see my point of view and act the way I need them to act so that I can feel loved, that's me not being my authentic self either. And so then we can apply this to a person who just sweeps it under the rug and doesn't say anything and just lets it go. And they're not necessarily being, overtly nice to their partner. They're not really being mean either. They're kind of just, okay, I'm here. Like, we'll just take it and we'll keep going. I can pretty much guarantee you that's not an authentic version of that person either. And so there might be many other options here of how a person can act, but these are the common ones that I've come across and that people have shared with me. And they're like, what is wrong with me? Like, why is this person? Why can I not get through to them? No matter what I do, they're always in a bad mood. I could do this, this, and this, and he's not going to see it. I never feel good enough because she's always upset with me about something. So just remember that these patterns that we exhibit, even though they make sense because of what we've been through, there is a really fine line here when we're learning how to set boundaries and we're learning how to discern, is this the version of myself that I want to be? Was I just letting a person walk all over me? Is this person, was it actually as bad as I thought it was, or maybe I was the problem all along? I think the really important question here is not trying to put a label on all of those things. I think it's more along the lines of, is this relationship getting to the point where I'm having to not be my honest and authentic self? Am I having to manipulate a situation just in order to get a shred of what feels like connection? And I know it's not because I'm just going to have to keep doing it down the road, right? And so I think narcissist is a hot button topic right now. It's being thrown around, and there are people who even say not everyone is a narcissist. You can't just say that about everyone. And I agree. I absolutely agree. I didn't even want to make the theme of this podcast be about healing from narcissistic abuse because I don't like to put labels and hard, fast rules on things. But the bottom line is that the women who need to hear these things, this is what we're going to resonate with, right? Because this is how it has been discussed. This is how it has been shown to us in terms of, hey, the way that you're being treated is not okay.
And with that comes this entire avalanche of realizing I haven't been acting the way that I want to act either. So, was I an abuser too? Am I having self accountability here? Or have I just been laying down and taking it? Have I, our brains can go in all of these circles. And I would like to just really encourage you. Number one, I would not follow a million and one different social media experts on narcissism and narcissistic abuse. I personally would not immerse myself in that environment to the point where that's what my entire algorithm is made of. I would instead be looking for things like post-traumatic growth or healing beyond the trauma. I would be very hesitant to be labeling things in that way in terms of the narcissist always does this or the narcissist always does that. Instead, I think the self accountability can come from this is what that person would tolerate in a relationship, right? Like this is how they wanted to act in order to get their needs met. And that's their needs. That's if that's how they want to get them met, then that's how they personally do that. How do I want to get my needs met? And this brings us to harder questions like, oh my gosh, what are my needs? Do I even have needs? Like after all these years, I don't even know what they are because it has been such a battlefield to even get them seen, much less met. And so I think we have a lot deeper work that we could be doing here instead of constantly analyzing the behavior of the narcissist or the things that they do to get us to keep coming back. I think there's a period of time where it's important to learn those things and it's important to constantly remind yourself, like, don't go back, don't go back, because I did it many times. The average amount of times is 7 that a woman will go back to their abuser, to their abusive partner. But I think there's also a point in time where the decision comes in of, okay, I've become aware of these patterns in myself that I didn't want to be exhibiting. That's not the kind of person I want to be. Let's nurture that into discernment for the future. Let's take this awareness and let's ask ourselves the hard questions and look at it in terms of how was I unknowingly, subconsciously, from a place of trauma and pain, how was I kind of forced in that moment? I forced myself to manipulate the situation just to get some shred of dignity or love. And I promise you, that is not the authentic version of yourself that you want to be, regardless of which coping mechanism or communication pattern you took on. I know that's not the authentic version of you. And so it's really important for growing this discernment for future relationships to reframe this. We're not looking at it in terms of this is what the narcissist will always do and we must be guarded against it, right? We're learning how to set our own boundaries. We're growing in this self-accountability. We're having the awareness, we're growing the discernment, and we're asking ourselves, what kind of expectations am I setting here in a relationship? When you're constantly nagging, when you're constantly criticizing, when you're to the point of constantly having to follow behind the other person and tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing in the relationship, you are communicating to that person, this is what I will tolerate in a relationship. This is my expectation that I'm setting for you. This is what I want more of in the future, right? And so the boundaries come with the self awareness, they come with the discernment. We can't just right out of the gate start setting boundaries because look at what we've been doing the whole time. That's been the expectation, that's been the boundary that we set. And the same goes for someone who, tries to placate and please the other person. When you're doing that repeatedly, you're showing the person, this is what I expect out of a relationship. This is what I will tolerate. These are the extents that I will go to make sure that we have peace in this relationship. And so we can't just right out of the gate know what a healthy boundary is going to be in that situation either, right? Like we've been taking it to this extreme this whole time. So I really invite you to sit with the questions that I posed in the beginning. Sit with the question of, which way am I leaning? Am I leaning more towards the person who is self-sacrificing, self-blaming, is going to smooth everything over and make sure everything is okay? Am I falling into, it was all my fault and I abused them too, so I'm just as bad. I'm always going to have unhealthy relationships. Are you swinging more towards everything is toxic? All of these behaviors are narcissistic. No contact immediately. Red flag, not safe, not healthy. Just really start being curious with yourself. And I think that will give you a good baseline to start journaling with in terms of how is my nervous system viewing relationships at this point in time? And knowing that, How did that inform the way that I was showing up in a relationship? How did I show up? What theme is there? And then take that a step further and say, how did that inform my expectations in a relationship that I was communicating to the other person? Do I still want to be doing that? Do I want to do something different? And that is how we can start slowly figuring out what our needs are, what our boundaries are, without the self-blaming, without swinging into labeling everything as toxic, just getting curious and taking a moment to say, okay, step one is awareness, and it's all right, wherever we've been. And I know I said in the beginning that we've been manipulating the situation. If you feel that's not the case, please feel free to leave a comment or email me. I actually really invite collaboration here. I love having conversation about this. So if you have thoughts that you would like to share on this topic, please feel free to comment them. And I would love to give a shout out in future episodes and just carry on the conversation here because I feel community, especially in healing from things like narcissistic abuse, betrayal trauma, I feel community is very important because the more that we don't talk about these things, the more normalized it becomes that they're hiding there under the surface. So, thank you for listening. If it resonated, I would love it if you would actually give this show a review. You can rate it. You can recommend it to a friend that you think might benefit from it. And if you want to be on the show, I'm going to leave some links in the show notes. You can find me on Podmatch and submit an application there. And I want to give you a quick sneak peek of our next episode. I sit down to chat with Amanda Baker, a therapist and yoga instructor who had really insightful takeaways to share in our conversation. So I can't wait for you to hear that episode. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for spending time in the Reclamation Room. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if this supported you, consider sharing it or leaving a review. You're not alone, and your reclamation is sacred.